Hello there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Welcome, everybody, to the Must Read Alaska Show. I'm your host, John Quick, coming to you live from somewhere in Alaska. And man, it finally turned sunny. It's awesome. All around the Kenai Peninsula, we've got some sun. People's kids are back in school, and I hope everybody is having a phenomenal fall. Last weekend here on the Kenai Peninsula, we had the North Road Car Show. We had 65 classic cars out to Nikiski Hardware and Supply. And folks, I hope you check that out. It was so much fun. We probably had 500-600 people come out to it, and fun for the whole family. And it's exciting that we put that on. It's our fourth year we put that on, so it's pretty awesome. Today we have a very special guest, a friend of mine, Jason Tauriainen. He's on the school board of the Kenai Peninsula School Board. And Jason, welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show.
Hey, thanks. It's great to be on. I do want to say I'm really bummed I missed the car show this weekend. I was on duty at my day job at Nikiski Fire, and my kids that went. My son is really into cars. He loved it. He wants to buy. I think the Studebaker was for sale or something.
Yeah, have fun with that price tag.
Yeah, he's in sixth grade. So he's nowhere close to that, but we love Nikiski Hardware. We appreciate all the stuff they do for the community and for schools, and I really am glad you guys do that, and I'm bummed I missed it.
Well, it's all good. One of the things that we have here on the peninsula, which we kind of pinch ourselves, is we do have some pretty phenomenal school teachers. You help run the school district as it relates to big picture stuff like the budget. What got you involved in the school board on the first place? Because it's a lot of work. You and I were chatting a couple of days ago. This is not like a couple hours a week job. This is a big job. You and others are championed with kind of overseeing the school district, the budget, and making sure that everything runs well. So what made you want to dip your toes in that water in the first place?
Well, I've always I've been moderately involved politically through most of my adult life, and even was interested when I was in high school, and so it's always been something I've had an interest in. I don't spend a lot of time doing it, but it's been something I've had some interest in and have been involved in one way or another throughout my life. And I worked at the school for years, graduated from Nikiski Middle High School way back in 1990, dating myself a tad, but graduated from there. When I moved back to Alaska, I was gone for about 10 years. I went to college in Washington and lived down there, helped plant a church down there. Moved back home and got a job at the school and just loved it. Loved working there. My kids went to school there. It just was a really great time of my life working at the school. And it came to a point where I was going to change careers just to, help work on my retirement a little bit, and just looking for a little different change as far as money and how much money I was making, and decided to follow my dream of being a firefighter paramedic. And did that in my 40s, and because that's real, it's a good idea to do something like that in 40s.
It's quite the change.
Yeah, and so sort of switched out into the classroom stuff and worked part-time as a custodian for a couple years at the school district while I went to college again, and was volunteering at Nikiski Fire. And then I decided, I'm gonna run for school board. I want to be involved still in the school, even though I'm changing careers. And so I ran for school board and won. And the big reasons why I ran initially was partially that. The other one was, at the time, we had a sort of initiative in a company that they had contracted with for personalized learning. And I was a little bit frustrated with that. Didn't really like it. A lot of teachers were very frustrated with it. And it was something I wanted to be involved in, to sort of have a say in what we do with curriculum. I didn't like the rotation of like constantly changing and doing something new and making our teachers do something new all the time. It just was consuming a lot of time and money, in my opinion. And so I wanted to be part of that process. And so that was a big part of why I initially ran, was to sort of have my voice and to represent teachers in my community about what was going on as far as instruction, and just because I wanted to be involved in schools after I changed careers. So.
And you still have kids in school, correct?
I do. I have, I mean, you know this, but I guess so people know, we're a blended family of 10, actually,
You're
8
like the
children.
Brady Bunch over there.
We are the Brady Bunch. You know, I got remarried 13 years ago now, 14 years ago now. And my wife moved up from Texas. We both had 3 from our previous marriages, and then we decided to have another. And then God blessed us with an additional one, which we weren't planning on, but she's a blessing. And so yeah, we have 8 kids. 6 of them have graduated. They're all working towards their lives, being, you know, positive contributors in society. My oldest son actually works at Nikiski Fire with me. Super proud of that, and super proud of my other kids that are chasing their dreams and done different kinds of things, working for doctors, working going into library science, going into helping kids with disabilities. And so just I'm super blessed.
You raised some good ones.
I've done I've done what I thought I could do, and God helped out along the way. And I've got a wonderful wife that really supports me, and she's amazing.
Well, folks listening in, we're talking to Jason Tauriainen, who is on the school board for the Kenai Peninsula School District. And Jason, you and I went to the same church together for a long time. You probably went to the same church as my wife forever. And you and your wife once headed up the kids ministry at the church. So I feel like if you can make it through being in charge of the kids ministry at a church, you're probably a better man for it.
Yeah, it's actually, my major is actually, not everybody knows this, but when I went down to college in the Kirkland area in Washington, and this is another thing, that's where we ran into each other. It was unrelated. Heidi's a little bit younger. Your wife is younger than me. I remember when she was first brought in as a baby to the church when I was just a little kid, you know, and but went to Northwest University, and that's where you and I first met years ago.
Yeah.
I was graduating and you were just coming in, I think. And I majored in biblical literature with a minor in educational ministries, which was sort of created for me. And so the minor was, and it was something I had a passion for. I've always had a passion for instruction and teaching, and I felt like that was sort of what God was leading me into at the time. And did some work in that, did some work in our church with that. And then also I do feel like my time working in schools and what I do now, life's ministry. If you're a believer, Christ, life's ministry. So
most of it happens outside of the church walls.
Exactly. But it was a blessing to spend some time doing children's ministries at our church.
So tell folks about, you're going to get folks listening on this from literally all over the world. You're going to Google Kenai Peninsula School District. Tell us a little bit about the school district. I know a little bit about it, but the folks listening in, they're gonna, there's gonna be somebody from Florida listening in who thinks it's, 6 schools in a couple city blocks. Talk to us a little bit about some of the crazy stats of the Kenai Peninsula School District.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. Kenai Peninsula Borough School District is large. It spans over 25,000 miles of land area and over water. We're the size of several of the smaller states the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District is. And we have over 8,400 students currently enrolled. We have 42 different schools in 17 different communities. Some of them are across the bay, across the inlet, that are remote, that are only accessible by plane or boat. So they're off the road system. Some of them are very remote, like rough road system. Some are in little cities, small cities and towns that are easily accessible. We just have everything you could imagine. We're a microcosm of the entire state of Alaska, which is gigantic. But with some people that might be listening elsewhere, they have very small school districts where a school district might only be 3 schools. They're elementary school, middle school, and high school. And they have one superintendent to cover for that. That's all they have. But no, we don't do that. We've got a massive area. We have to have a district that meets the needs of 17 different communities, and that's quite the challenge. And it's an honor to work on a board and represent the areas that I represent, which is the Tabona School in Tyonek across Cook Inlet, Nikiski Middle High School, Nikiski North Star, and also the connection students that are in this area, the homeschool students that are in my area. So blessed to be a part of that.
Yeah, the logistics behind some of that's just nuts. So, for people listening in, imagine trying to get school lunches to a school district the size of West Virginia, and that's about what you're looking at.
Yeah, it's a challenge, and with this current economy and everybody's struggling with inflation, we're in the same boat with our budget and what we have to do, and in some ways, yeah, it's a real challenge with what's going on right now. So,
and folks would be surprised, oftentimes, I think when people talk about school budgets, especially the critics will say things like, "Oh, it's bloated," and blah 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 blah. I want to encourage folks, go have a stroll over at the admin building at the Kenai Peninsula School District. It's kind of a ghost town compared to the borough side, and you guys run a lean ship. I'm sure it could be leaner, but you guys do tend to run a pretty lean ship.
Yeah, we've throughout my time, this is my sort of moving towards the end of my second term, we've cut district office several times. And it's at a point right now where I feel like it's too small, but we can't really do anything about it until something changes financially, as far as funding from the state, or maybe some miracle happens and inflation just plummets, and whatever it is, we're just not in a place right now where we can add to that. But there's some overworked people, especially in the human resources department at district office. Yeah, we have a lot of employees, like 1,000 or something like that. The borough is much smaller, less than half that size, I believe, for employees. And we have a small portion of that building, and the borough building is much larger as far as the amount of staff they have, administrative staff in the back. Yeah. So it's something we're proud of, that we run a lean administration staff. We focus on keeping our class sizes small. Upwards of 80 cents on the dollar is spent on payroll and benefits in the district. We don't have a lot of places to cut anymore. We've cut for years, even though the budget looks like we were spending the same amount of money because of inflation and other things. There's still cuts. You still make cuts. That's what inflation does to you when you don't have increases in revenue. And so it's definitely a challenge, and I hope we can help fix that in the future and make it a little bit easier to support our schools.
So what's your personal philosophy on the board? I know that everybody that's elected, maybe they lean conservative, maybe they lean liberal, maybe they're in the center right, center left. What's been your philosophy, and how have you been able to kind of stay true to who you are, but also still do your job as representing the public and the school district?
Yeah, so I'm a local control guy. Like I really sort of believe that we should try to have, like, as you go up in government, I believe it should get smaller and have less reach. And I just believe in following our constitutions, which is our law of the land. I feel like our federal government is bloated and does way too many things that are not in its power, that are enumerated in the Constitution. It needs to be slimmed down substantially. But as you get smaller or get lower and closer to it, I believe governments should have more say, within reason. Everything should be, I'm fiscally conservative, so I believe that we should be looking at our budgets, managing our budgets and people's money, the taxpayer money, as efficiently as possible, while offering the best education we can offer to our community, for what the parents are wanting. And we have ways to do that through site councils, where parents can get involved in our schools and have some say and give recommendations to the board. Plus, you can get testimony in there. So from that standpoint, I guess my philosophy is it definitely leads conservative. I am personally, I'm a very social conservative. I've already mentioned that I'm, Christian, and obviously that influences a lot of my life. But I do believe our schools, they have to not just cater to me and my needs, they have to cater to everybody in our community. And so I want our schools to feel safe for people of all beliefs. And that means you're not pushing any one thing on anybody, no matter what it is, from whatever side. They should be able to, worship privately in the school and pray privately if they want to, as the teachers should be able to as well. And no mandates from the government saying you're going to read this book or pray this way or anything like that. But I believe it should be available to all people, right? And so as a social conservative, fiscal conservative, but with a libertarian bent. So I believe in personal freedom. I really believe in personal freedom, and that the government and the state and the schools should work to limit that as little as possible. Keep a safe environment that's safe and comfortable for all the students of our area.
So how's it been being on the board? Because I think oftentimes you throw a conservative on, especially a school board in really any town in America, and it can go usually one of two ways. And it usually goes, the lone conservative is out there fighting on his own and is a one-man island. But I think maybe your philosophy is a little different in that you maintain a really good relationship, not only with the other school board members, but the superintendent as well. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. This is the third superintendent that I've been under as a board member since we've gotten on. I'll say I've liked all of them. I've disagreed with all of them on some things. But this current superintendent, Clayton Holland, he's a great guy, and he listens. He is willing to make change when he needs to. He tends to want to have a lighter hand on thankfully on mandates and things like that most parents and most people don't want. And so I'm really appreciative of this current superintendent and have a really good working relationship with him, and thankful that he's there. And one of the things I'm most proud about is our decision to hire Clayton. With other members on the board, we have a variety. There's a couple of us, two or three of us that lean more conservative, two of us that are substantially more conservative than probably most other people on the board, and then some people that lean the other way, and then some people that are moderate. And I feel like it's important to have good relationships with all of them. I don't agree with them all the time, and they don't agree with me all the time. And so there's work that goes behind the scenes trying to get things to change that need to change. And then there's stuff as far as, when I talk one-on-one with people, just trying to help them understand my point of view on something so that we can make a change that I'm getting feedback from parents of like, why are you doing this? We want to do this. And people may not agree with it. And there's both sides. There's always both sides in an issue from parents, And so I just believe it's really important that I maintain my personal conservative values, work with the board as best I can to try to make decisions and support policy that reflects our community and reflects what most of the parents want, and making the district a place that's safe, comfortable, and fair for all students.
Yeah, one of the litmus tests that I have for superintendents on the Kenai Peninsula School District is, will they return your phone call? It's kind of the bare bones basic necessity that I have put in place for myself for a litmus test. And man, Clayton is amazing. He'll get back to you. It may not be right away, but he will actually get back to you. And I think that says a lot, that he's willing to, your current superintendent is willing to return phone calls and emails to the average Joe in his school district. The previous superintendent was not. We don't need to go into that, but man, he didn't want to hear what I had to say or any of my friends had to say. But Clayton Holland's done a great job at just being available for folks. And I think that solves so many problems just being willing to listen to people and make it feel like, they have a voice. And so kudos to the board hiring Clayton, because I think that was a good move.
Yeah, a side note on that is Clayton used to be my boss, because I worked in special education for 15 years in the school as an aide in the school, and he was the director for special education for most of that time, if not all of it. And he always knew my name. He always valued my opinion. When he came in to the schools, and he always made me feel like I was important. And he does a great job of that. It's one of the reasons why I was interested in him being the superintendent, because I just feel like he has a good heart, and he's a good man. And so that was a important factor for me. So.
Nice. So you have an idea, which is oftentimes I think it's hard to steer an old wooden ship, right? The school districts, government, to have a new idea come into place is almost impossible. But you have an idea of potentially shifting how many school days a student goes to school during the week. Talk to me a little bit about this.
Yeah, part of it happened when there were some proposed budget cuts in Dunleavy's first year as governor, about a 20% cut to education that was in his proposed budget, which was pretty devastating. I mean, I think everybody was involved, and we actually put out the budget and said, well, this is what we're going to have to do. And there wasn't a lot of people that were interested in those cuts. We'll just say that there's a lot of testimony during those times. But out of that, I was looking at other things. I had looked at it before, actually, when I worked in the school, but there's a lot of districts around the country that were moving to a 4-day school week for a couple different reasons. And one of them was to save money. And I was looking for different ways to potentially save some money. So you can save some on busing, on lunches, utilities, possibly payroll if you get real aggressive with it. The other thing that you do with that, the other benefits that you get with that, so you shift some time, because we can't just get rid of days. We have a set number of days we have to have during the school year by law on 170. I don't remember right now. I'm not remembering the exact number. But if we cut that down, then you have to get a waiver from the state to say we're going to count hours instead of days. And so you would have to extend the 4 days that you do go to school to a little bit longer to make up for the days you miss. And a lot of the days, if we have holiday days through the year, those would just be put on those Fridays, except for the mandatory ones that are on Monday, like Labor Day and whatnot. And you wouldn't have any early release days anymore, or any other, all of your like days we have for parent-teacher conferences,
like in-service days, those kinds of things.
Those would all be on those Fridays. So students already aren't there, so you wouldn't be just wiping out a bunch of days. It would be a certain amount of days. I'd also like to extend the week of school a week into May. My preference would be to not start until after Labor Day, but that's a real big ask for people. And so there's just a lot of calendar things I'm looking at, but sticking to the 4-day school week, the other benefit that you get from that is a lot of our students go away on the weekend for athletics.
Oh, yeah.
Or drama, debate, forensics. And so they travel on these trips and they miss a day. And so I just saw it in my time there. The high school would be emptied out on Fridays as people went to travel, and parents would go to these games.
Especially hockey season, or now there's comp volleyball and comp basketball and all those kinds of things.
Right. And then even the elementary school would be affected, because the parents would go travel to see their kids, take their elementary school kids out as well. And so there's just a lot of attendance issues that go on. So these schools saw an increase of attendance numbers that went to a 4-day school week. They saw pretty much no change, any kind of academic performance. There, you can look at like some of them that saw a little spike, a little dip, but pretty much if you look at the average, it was about the same roughly. And everybody was able to save some money. It wasn't a ton of money, but it was some. And so looking at that picture and thinking about being more efficient, having real good time for teachers to collaborate and get work done on that Friday and that day off without taking other time off, and getting our attendance as high as possible, and maximizing that teacher student instruction time without teachers or administrators leaving the building, that all that would be done on Friday. You would just focus on, we don't do things Monday through Thursday outside of, if at all possible, outside of instructing kids. And if you got to go to a meeting or any kind of staff meeting or any kind of collaboration, those are all done on that Friday. And so that's sort of why I started getting interested in it. And then I started fielding the idea to parents and teachers. And of course, as you know, there's a blend. There's some people that love the idea.
Yeah.
And then there's some people that don't like the idea. And so my thought is, I want to get this out for discussion and have people weigh in and see if it works for us. And maybe it will, maybe it won't. I'm not here to push it. I will advocate for it because I think it's a great idea personally. But if 70% of our teacher or parents and teachers don't want it and think it's a horrible idea, then I'm not going to force that. I just want to have the discussion.
Yeah, I think it's worth a discussion because, we've kind of had the same school calendar in place forever. And it was kind of started for kids to have summers off because of farming and those kinds of things. And that doesn't really happen anymore. So I think it's a great time to ask the question, why do we have these calendars? Is there a better way we could do it? Is there a more efficient way we can do it? And, I told my kids about the idea, and my son's reaction was, Jason Tauriainen is the smartest man alive. He's like, my son's like, wait a second, we can get Fridays off? Jason Tauriainen is the smartest man alive.
So not everybody thinks that, but I do appreciate the compliment.
You have his vote. So I think it's great. I think, like you said, 60% of the people might think it's a horrible idea, but let's at least have the conversation.
I agree.
So let's talk a little bit about homeschool kids, because we have a lot in the school district. We have a lot around the state. And I think you and I were talking about this, and I feel pretty strongly about this because this happened to us, right? My wife and I pulled our kids from school during COVID and wanted to try to enroll them in the Kenai Peninsula School District's homeschool program. Didn't feel like it was all put together at the time. So we went to IDEA. So talk to me a little bit about the school district and some of the resources that you have for homeschool kids, and then maybe some of the improvements that have happened over the last year and maybe that you'd hope to see down the road.
Yeah. So, I'm bummed that you guys felt like you had to do that at the time, but I understand as well. And I think we have a Connections. Connections is the name of our homeschool program. It does serve the entire Kenai Peninsula Borough. And it's becoming a very good program. I believe in school choice for parents if they want to homeschool their kids. I believe they should. I think it's a very hard job. We see a lot of kids come back in where people try to homeschool, and it was a struggle for them, and kids come in with some deficits. Some kids come in and after homeschooling, and they are remarkable. You see, just like with our own students in our brick and mortar schools, you see the full blend of what happens in our homeschool community. So, but I do believe it's a choice parents should have, but it is it's something they have to be passionate about and want to really, really do, because it's a challenge to be a parent and a teacher at the same time, and to teach all those things. But Connections has been, initially it was something that honestly did have some resistance in the district years ago, because principals and teachers, we didn't want people out of we wanted kids in our buildings. We wanted, we liked having them in there. And so it wasn't something that was a big focus for the district, but it was something that was available. That has shifted over the past several years, and this board has been very supportive of making change. I think during COVID, that was something that really highlighted that we weren't ready for the influx of parents, the amount of parents that wanted to homeschool rather than do some of the things that you and I both would agree on without saying too much were ridiculous during that time. But parents needed that ability to do that, and so we've made some, or this administration has made some changes, and we has been focused on making the Connections program more more in line with what other programs have to offer around the state, and to be competitive and to really be responsive to parents' needs. And so we're continuing that. We're looking forward to continuing to make improvements there and get input for that, what we can do better, how we can help support parents and match up. So we're following the law and what's allowed to be spent and how things are allowed to be done. But to give parents the most that we can with our Connections program and be the best homeschool, which gives a unique opportunity to blend with our brick and mortar buildings. So parents can easily put their kids in some classes for enrichment.
Or sports possibly,
and sports and all those different things. And so we have that ability to offer that uniqueness, but we still have to have that great efficiency which other programs have just had more experience with. But I believe we're pretty much caught up at this point and will continue to work to get better. I encourage, obviously, for people to keep their money local and go to our local school district when they're looking for a homeschool option. Other ones that are able to work in the area, it's because of the way the state funds. If you don't have an organized borough, you don't have to share the revenue as far as paying for the school. So people in the Kenai Peninsula Borough have to pay a portion of Kenai Peninsula Borough School District's budget. People in other districts, such as Galena, where IDEA is based, they don't have to, because they're not a full organized borough. And so all their funding comes from the state, and that's why they're able to operate a statewide homeschool program. If we did that, we'd be the people in the borough would be funding students around the state. And that's not really something that we should be doing. And so as long as the state is forcing some boroughs to share in the funding, we're going to keep it here, but it is the local option. And so using the Connections program does keep the money local in our borough and doesn't send money out to other cities and other towns around the state.
So if we have people listening in and they're like, oh, wow, my kids are homeschooled and I live in Homer and I didn't know that I could get resources from the school district. Is it fair to say that kids that are being homeschooled in the Kenai Peninsula School District could sign up for Connections and get resources towards, math or science and access to sports and those kinds of things? It's actual resources. It's not just being a number in a sheet.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Just however, they get an allocation that they can use to spend, and people use those for different things. They do them for things that they do as a family, that they feel are part of their educational path. Other people have started businesses, tutoring programs or enrichment programs to help support homeschool parents. Again, with if they want to attend a couple classes with our schools, they have that ability as well. And so there's a lot of different things that we can offer, and our goal is to make our homeschool program the best it can be, and to be that people, if they choose us, they're not going to lose anything. We're giving them everything that we can possibly give under the law to allow parents to educate their kids the way they want to educate them. And if there's anything we can do better, we would love to hear that feedback. And we're really looking for that, and we want to be the best homeschool program for Kenai Peninsula Borough School District.
Nice. So if you're listening, folks, and you are homeschooled, get in touch with Connections, because you're leaving resources on the table, and you might as well at least check them out. Last question to you is this, Jason: how does somebody get involved? There's school board meetings, there's site council, there's committees. What's an easy way for folks to get involved? Because parents are passionate. There's PTA associations. What's, rather than parents being frustrated and, doing nothing, what are some ways folks can get involved to make a positive difference in the school district?
Well, first of all, site council is the bottom line to get involved within the schools. And of course, getting involved in the parent teacher associations to help support what's happening in the schools is awesome. But site council is a great way to have discussions about what you want to do with school, about changing handbook policy, about about making recommendations to the school board about things that you'd like to change. And say Nikiski wanted to be a pilot for a 4-day school week, like the Nikiski community, they can initiate that through the site councils and then put a resolution or send something to the school board and say, hey, we would like to pilot this. If you guys want to roll through this and get a waiver, our community wants to try this and see if it works. That can be done at the site council level. So all of our communities have site councils. It's been something that has been a little less used across the board. Some of them are really strong. Seward has an amazing site council that's very active. But our current principals, Jenna Fabian at Nikiski North Star, as far as Nikiski level, because I'm here, I'm not in Tyonek very often, but I think they've got their own, tribe community or village community that's very involved. And then Michael Crane at Nikiski Middle High School are really wanting to increase and involve parents in site council, and it's available to them. The dates are on their Facebook pages and websites to see when you can go. And I encourage people to go. I try to attend any of them that I'm available for. So I'm there, accessible for people to talk to if they have questions. Of course, they can call me, message me on Facebook if they need to talk, and I'm available, or email me through the district email, and I'll get back to them as soon as I can. And but that's the first level. Of course, you can come testify on any topic at the board. There's two parts in the board meeting to do that, and then just interacting, getting set up as a volunteer and getting in our schools and helping out and knowing what's going on in there, and not just listening to what people are saying that they think is happening in our schools. It's best to get involved. And so to be in our schools now, we do require people to do a little background check to become a volunteer. That's
a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's easy to do. And it's a great way to be in our schools and be involved and sort of see what is happening in there. So
awesome. Well, any last minute things here before we head off? Floor's yours.
Well, of course, the election's coming up on October 3rd, so I encourage everybody to go out and vote for what they're passionate about on the municipal elections. Turnout's always a little bit lower on these, so they are important. Actually, as I said earlier, I almost feel like they're the most important, because I don't think we have a whole lot of control that's going on over there with the Richmond, north of Richmond, as they say. But here locally, you have a lot of control, and we have a lot more say in how things change here at our local level. So I think our municipal elections are the most important elections. And I'm blessed and honored that people selected me initially and continue to support me. My heart is to represent the communities of Nikiski and Tyonek, and then in extension, the entire Kenai Peninsula Borough School District to the best of my ability, and to be consistent in what I do and what I believe and how we support our students, teachers, parents in what we do here at Kenai Peninsula Borough School District.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jason. You're welcome back anytime. And for folks that have maybe just caught the tail end of this, you're going to want to go back and listen to the whole thing to hear really from a great model of what it looks like to be conservative, but still have influence on what tends to be a liberal sector of life, a school board. And so, Jason, great job on the school board, and we wish you nothing but success here for Must Read Alaska. For folks that listen, watch, and read Must Read Alaska, if you want to help keep the lights on, go to mustreadalaska.com. On the right-hand side, there's a little donate button. Every $5, $10, $100 helps keep the lights on here at Must Read Alaska. And I want to give a special shout out to all of our listeners. The podcast on in Alaska or about Alaska just came out ranked, and we are number 2 for any podcast in Alaska or about Alaska, beating out every major mainstream media. And so we want to thank folks that listen to us all around the globe, but especially here in Alaska. Until next time, I'm John Quick from somewhere in Alaska. Thanks, Jason.